Bueno, muy buenas noches a todos, compañeros, profesores. Espero se encuentren muy bien, ya con estos fríos y estos cambios de clima que se están dando, ya siendo las 7:46 de la noche. Empezamos con este video del reto número 11, la semana número 11. Para esto escogí este artículo muy chévere sobre un teorema para las economías globales. Dice, un teorema de Modigliani-Miller para finanzas públicas de las economías globalizadas. Bueno, como ya es de costumbre, entonces vamos a leerlo en inglés. Y bueno, su traducción es la siguiente. A Modigliani-Miller theorem for the public finances of globalized economies highlights. The article introduces the Modigliani-Miller neutrality theorem for public finances in financially globalized economies. According to the theorem, the composition of a government debt does not affect its ability to repay obligations, and that composition and the currency of the denomination in the exchange rate regime do not affect the cost of budget financing. The theorem has two corollaries. In a clear money sheet, the finance budget deficit must pay a positive real rate of return. This rate of return changes inversely with the credibility of the government issuing the money. Abstract. In line with this capital structure relevance principle of Modigliani and Miller in the 1958, this article shows that when international capital allocation choices are determined by well-informed deep-pocket global financial investors, there are not net gains. A government of highly international financially integrated, globalized economy can be consistently stopped from resorting to one type of deficit financing, say debt versus another, say money, or by issuing debt in one form versus another. The article probes a new neutrality theorem whereby in a globalized economy, the cost of the capital needed by governments to finance their deficits is independent of whether number one, financing originates from debt or money, and number two, debt is denominated in domestic or foreign currency, and number three, if money and debt are issued under floating or fixed exchange rate. The theorem's two corollaries show that governments seeking to monetize their deficit must remunerate money holdings where real return that varies inversely with the credibility and directly with the stock of money. The article points to area for future research. Keywords: capital structure, credibility, debt equity, global investors, irrelevance, money neutrality. We have here a type of code or slogan. I have a simple explanation. For the first Modigliani-Miller proposition is after the ball game, and the pizza man comes up to Yogi Berra and he says, "Yogi, how do you want me to cut this pizza into quarters?" Quarters. Yogi says, "No, cut it into 8 pieces." I'm feeling hungry. I'm feeling hungry tonight. Now, well, I told the story. The usual reaction is, you mean to say that they gave you a Nobel Prize for that? Introduction. Already in the 1990s, it had become common practice for rating agencies to assign a higher rating to three: domestic versus foreign sovereign debt, reflecting the presumed greater ability and willingness of governments to service debt denominated in their own currency. However, data analysis at the time did not detect a systematic relationship between the denomination of debt and the likelihood of future default. The study of the cases of Argentina, Brazil, and Colombia even found that bonds issues in the international market tended to be cheaper than similar bonds issued on the domestic market. Over the years, the view that local currency debt is safer has gradually faded, and recent research covering large samples of emerging markets economies has shown almost no appreciable gap between local currency ratings and their foreign counterpart. In part, this may be explained by the increased recognition that sovereigns do default in local as much as in foreign currencies, especially if default is properly understood as including not only the interruption of debt service, but also repayment of domestic debt obligation in a depreciated or depreciating currencies which cause losses of debt holders similarly to default. With financial market that have become internationally integrated and with well-informed global investors that arbitrage across market efficiently, the evolving relevance of debt composition can intuitively understood by thinking that differences in the form of debt cannot influence a government ability to repay its obligation. The government's role resource by basing the same irrespective of the form of indebtedness chosen, and it is visible to expert investors precisely as in Miller samples of the pizza slices in the epigraph to this article. This being the case, one could also wonder why the relevance of debt composition should not extend to other forms of debt. For instance, why should the cost capital of why should the cost capital to a government differ if the government borrows foreign exchange under floating or fixed exchange rates, or if it finances its expenses by printing money instead of issuing debt. Other gains, in terms of saving or creating policy space, that the government could consistently extract by choosing one type of financing versus another. In line with the capital structure relevance principle of Modigliani-Miller in the 1958, as applied to corporate finance, this article shows the value of the public sector claims, money and debt, of highly internationally financially integrated globalized economy is independent of the capital structures of the government's finances. In particular, the article transposes the Modigliani-Miller MNM approach adapted as needed. The public finances improves the neutrality theorem for public finances of globalized economies. Henceforth, the neutrality theorem, whereby in a globalized economy, the cost of capital needed by government to finance the fiscal deficit is independent of whether, number one, financing originates from the poor money, number two, debt is denominated in domestic or foreign currency, and number three, money in debt are issued under floating or fixed exchange rate. Also, two corollaries are proven, which show that governments feature in low credibility and monetizing the deficit to avoid recourse to the financing need to remunerate money holding, where return number one is higher, where credibility is lower, and number two rises with the stock of money issued, eventually defying the original purpose of issuing money instead of debt. The neutrality theorem builds on two blocks. First, an analogy with the original MMN corporate finance approach, where firms issue debt and acquire it, and a neutrality theorem takes on the view that fiat, an irredeemable money issued by the state, represent equity, no debt, of the issuing entity. It must be noted, however, that while the analogy made possible by the money's equity view is very useful, upon adopting the view is not strictly necessary to prove the theorem. Second, central to the theorem is the role of global financial investors. Global investors, to be described later, whose investment choices are critical for the pricing of government claims of globalized economy. The theory proposed in this article is not empirically empirically tested. As discussed in the last session, this will be an essential step. The purpose of this article is only to show that M&M approach can be usefully extended to comprehend how the value of the public sector claims is determined, and how policy space is affected. An economy that is highly integrated in a context where some global actors have the power to remove or significantly reduce important friction to asset trading and financial markets. This article is organized as follows. Section number 2 reviews the literature on neutrality theorems in macroeconomics. Section number 3 explains how the neutrality theorem contributes the literature. Section number 4 describes the building blocks of the neutrality. Theorem defines the economy's model and derives its equilibrium conditions. Section number 5 demonstrates the neutrality theorem and its two corollaries on the equilibrium return on money. In this section number 6 concludes the article by summarizing its result and indicating areas for future research. relevant literature. There is no the step or section number two. Excuse me. Okay. The literature reviewed in this section relates the two instruments used to establish the neutrality theorem. The first instrument is the portfolio theorem, underpinning the international capital allocation taken by the global investors who invest in and trade public sector claims issue the highly international and financially integrated economies. The second instrument is the M&M approach as applied the money and debt claims issued by the public sector of such economies. The literature relevant to the first instrument relates to the portfolio balance approach to open economies in reference theory, whereby financial markets rate demand for predetermined supplies of the domestic and foreign asset, such as money and bonds, based on current wealth, an asset or imperfect substitute. The portfolio analysis used here assumes that assets are part of the investor's portfolios and that changes in asset supplies induce investors to rebalance their portfolios upon risk and return considerations and set in motion an adjustment process that influence asset prices by amount changes for assets. The portfolio analysis here is, however, moves beyond the traditional portfolio balance approach, in that it assumes a highly integrated global capital market driven by investors who have globally allocated resources across countries, based on intertemporal optimization criteria, and it also gives prominence to governments' inter intertemporal budget constraint (IBC), ABC, as an essential determinant of the market value of public sector money and debt claims. As regards the second instrument, for example, the M&M approach, it should be noted that it constitutes to this data cornerstone of corporate finances. It provides a landmark in the theory of finance that helps to understand under which condition and why the capital structure of a firm does not affect its value, and which will be particularly useful for this article analysis. In addition, by relying on the no arbitration principle, the M&M approach adopted in this article is especially fit for studying the determination of the equilibrium market value of public sector money in debt claims in global capital markets that are almost frictionless, and certainly for global investors. Y bueno, y ahora hablando en español, ya que se nos está acabando el tiempo, podemos apreciar que este artículo que leí en su introducción y su resumen nos habla sobre cómo las economías globales deben de manejar su parte financiera, ya que muchos gobiernos utilizan de que no tienen de que deben de apalancarse de mucha deuda para poder cubrir sus gastos. Entonces, ¿dónde quedan sus ingresos que reciben por parte de impuestos? Para ello deben de mejorar las políticas económicas y para eso es que crearon el modelo Modigliani-Miller o pues el teorema creado en 1958. Entonces ahí prácticamente está haciendo tanto en énfasis, tanto en países de Sudamérica, así como mencionamos anteriormente como Colombia, Brasil, Argentina. Eh, Así como otros países, ya sea de Europa, de América Central, Asia, etcétera, los cuales necesitan una mejoría en su política monetaria. Bueno, no siendo más, muchas gracias por la atención prestada y hasta pronto.